And the next use case, it's about automating vManage. And the idea of automating vManage is that vManage is not something that you can remove, right? It's just it comes with the deployments of Cisco SD-WAN, but it's got, and I can show you this here pretty quickly. The challenge, this is Cisco vManage, right? This is their dashboard, and you can see I have like a base network with like 4 edges, etc. And the difficulty of vManage is that when you need to build a template, you have to deal with all these different things. You have to build every single one of them, right? And you usually spend a lot of time in the labs to build this. And so the idea is that, okay, how do we help a customer that needs to repeat this 700 times? So they've got a branch, and let me show you how you deploy, a VH or CH node on an SD-WAN fabric. You have these templates, and these templates are using these other feature templates. I've shown you the very long list, and you have all these different very long forms that you have to build, for every single one, and by the way, for every single SKU as well, right? And you can see it's presenting you every options that you might have. Every option is there, and you might not even be interested in using cellular services, right? If I show you like building another device template from scratch, you're going to see that if I'm choosing a 4K, and look, yes, this is the entire Cisco catalog here. And look at, if I'm choosing a 4K, it's going to offer you things like cellular, TDMs, UC stuff. Maybe you're not interested into that. So the idea is, how can you help the customer to contemplate all this without being overwhelmed by all these different options? So this is what I'm going to show you now. So let me just log back in again. So what I have here, let me go to this here. So I've got a vEdge router that I have here, and you can see it uses the same view of config modeling that you saw for Terraform, that you can entertain for any of your one of the 30 vendors that we support. And that's the same principle. You have a node, and assembly is where you enforce all the different features. I only have one here. And here I'm using a template, and let me look at this template. This template, you're going to see, this is very similar to the view that you see here, right? You can see you have a transport service VPN, etc., additional templates. This is literally what you see here. We just renamed some of them to make them clearer, but this is literally everything you have. And the idea is that when the customer is looking at this view, when the operations are looking at this view, they can only see what matters to them, and all the complexity of like showing you the entire Cisco SKU catalog that you're not using. Then you only see the nodes that you have here, the SKUs that you want to have in your infrastructure. Same for all the different options that you might have here. I'm not showing you more than what you should see. There's no PPP stuff, there's no cellular stuff, there's no UC stuff. I don't care about that in my deployments. So this is showing and highlighting our data modeling capabilities, and it means that this is the beauty of vManage API. So yes, it's not well documented, it's partially documented. There's one major good thing with the vManage API, is that not only it's giving you a way to manipulate your different components inside vManage, but it gives you the data model they're using. And we are using this extensively within Gluware. It means that I can regenerate this particular form. I'm not sure I'm going to have the time to show you this today, but this is something we can definitely demonstrate, where I can literally add another SKU here literally in minutes. So we can alter this data model so that you make sure that your operations they don't have the desire to be creative and try different things. They can only see the different, choices that they need to choose from and not the other options that have not been validated or not used, etc. And when you see all these different drop downs here, you're going to realize, oh, wait, everything that I see here, this is literally what I see, from all the different templates, which is literally all this list here. So how did I make them available in Glueware? Well, this is where we have this notion of persona. You can see that this particular node here is attached to a fabric, and my fabric is literally pointing to my vManage. And this is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to point to it, and I'm going to literally ingest everything that my vManage configuration has. And you can see very quickly that I have the way to import all these different templates that are available, all the different localized policies that are available. I'm not going to do this now because it's already done. But if you can check that, if I'm looking at my localized policy, then yeah, they're here, and we're trying to offer better views as well, right? For the customer to play with this complexity. So I have my node now, and my node is pointing to this particular template, and I can see visually all the different parts that it's using. This is definitely vManage construct. And there's one thing I'm going to do is I want to deploy this node now, and I'm going to do this straight from Gluware, and I'm going to add something here, which is data one. Let me show you why this is important. The way you deploy something in vManage, you choose a template. You attach a device. I'm choosing this device. I'm attaching it. And then you have this pretty interesting exercise that you need to go through where, you need to literally provide all these different pieces of information that are nothing else but the variables that you exposed in your templates. And you cannot deploy anything before you enter everything here. You have the possibility of using a CSV file, but what's difficult is that where is this data? Maybe you would like to integrate this in your CI/CD pipeline. You would like to, I don't know, maybe having REST calls to be able to do this, to fill all this data. And this is exactly what we're doing. So this data one that I have here, let me show you what's in there. This is literally all the values that this template is expecting with all the values here. And this is a data model for us. And this data model for us literally you can use API calls to go and fetch all this data. And you can either ask Gluware to go fetch it, or you can use, API calls we expose to put this data. Now you're going to tell me, but wait, all these different, fields and values, how do you have this here? How did that work? How do you get this from the templates? Well, again, the beauty of the vManage API is I can create an empty one that I have here. You can see this is an empty data model. And I can literally import this straight from vManage. And vManage is going to tell me exactly what are the fields that I have exposed with the templates that I am using. So let's give it a minute here. And I'm choosing the templates. This is the one I want to use. And it's going to show me all the different fields for this model. You can see here, this is what vManage is telling me. These are the 20 fields you need to play with this template. I'm clicking OK. Going to close this. If I go, let me go back to it. If I go back to the one I just created, you can see the data model is now built, and I can just go and fetch the values now, either manually or through APIs. And if now I have my data in this, let me go back to my model. Let me show you data one. I have all my values here. Now I can go and deploy this node. And I deploy it exactly the same way like any other node in Glueware. I can preview or I can make it happen. Proceed. I'm going to show you the engine humming. You can see that if I go back to my dashboard, I only have 4 nodes running. And as Glueware is deploying here, and you're going to see we have a hybrid approach to it because you can see that we connected CLI-wise to the node where we are in vManage mode, right? So there's no CLI in write access, but you do see that we're able to access the nodes for inventory, due diligence, etc. And then I'll show you something after about checking the state before and after. And then you can see it was able to make a lot of calls to the API. And if I go back to vManage now, I should see this one coming up pretty soon. So if there's something that I would like to do now is like, how do I make sure that this is running? In the assembly, I have the notion of state. And in the notion of state, I can add a before after. And if I do this one here, you can see that I can ask Gluware to issue this particular show command here and turn this into a data model that I can query to make sure that, for instance, for this particular node, I have all the peers of state up and all of them. So if you're familiar with vManage, you know that in order for a node to be up and running, then you need to have your state up for your vSmart and your vManage, and you can literally query this. So for the interest of time, I have run this query earlier that I can show you a previous log that I did. Let me show you. I think it's this one. And you can see that when you issue this command, this is what the node is giving you. We're turning this into a data model, right? This is all the different nodes that I have in my system. And I'm literally willing to interrogate and say, oh, sorry, a bit too quick, and say, I want all my peers. Let me try to delicately move on the right. Can I do this on the right? I want all the state up, and I have 3, and I was successful because they're all up. And I can stop, I can start, I can issue, an error if this is not honored.
Yeah, so I want to talk about those the variables in the in the feature templates. That is the biggest pain point, I think, for most deployments. So I see a lot of potential value here in being able to pull from sources of truth. My question is, how do you iterate through, like if I'm going to deploy 100 sites using the same device template, right? Not an uncommon idea with something like SD-WAN. How do you iterate through that? Like, how do you provide variability in those template fields within your tool so that you're not just going in and manually click, pull, click, pull, click, pull? What does that look like?
So thank you for your question, Jordan. It's a great question. The idea is that the pooling that I've shown you only do this because you need to do this initially because you have built all these different feature templates, you have built, all these different kind of building blocks that vManage is forcing you to consume, okay? And so once this is done, then the building of the feature-based template, by the way, we also do the CLI template in vManage mode, then you build this in Gluware, and the data model is a data model, and we have instances. So every time you see a green block that I've shown, it's literally an instance of it. And you can create as many iterations that you have variations in your network. Some could be reusable blocks, or some can be unique to the box. So the device template data that I've shown, yes, it's unique per node. And once the model is important once, it's a matter of fetching, if you want to fetch, or injecting into Glueware this data into the data model, and you create as many as you have branches or routers that you have in your network. And this is all done through Glueware, if that makes sense. So you have one data model supporting the data, and then you create as many instances as you want. And you can have reusable instances, right? So let's say you have regions as well. So you can have instances that are just for regions, if that makes sense.
Jordan, what I'll add is that with Glueware, what we found is it's easier when you push the variables into Glueware or let Glueware go pull them where we have the variables to work with. Then we use the integrated calls to go and pull that data for each template generation. So you are still doing a programmatic action to go grab that variable and populate it in runtime, but we've generally found it better to go collect those variables ahead of time.
So what you're saying is basically in your source of truth, you're going to have all these things defined. And so
That's
you're
right.
you're going to use an identifier for that instance, and you're going to go pull from your source of truth with that identifier is going to pull down and populate all of those fields. So the work is
Exactly.
really done in your source of truth rather than in the vManage either API or GUI, and you're tying those two things together so you can deploy them rapidly.
That's right. We bring in kind of become a central source of truth for the variables required.
Okay.